Hi, everybody. Here we are on the first express train from the Vision train station, and we're here talking with Roman Villigrana, and he's going to be sharing his 8 steps of synchronization. And my name is Amanda Sage. I'm here with my partner, Joe Bob Merritt, Alecia Sacred Heart, and Meg Serenity. And we'll be sharing some conversation and look forward to hearing your realizations and your stories and how it applies to art and artists and creativity in the times we're in right now.
Communicate to God. If there is such a thing, then there must be a way to communicate. Well, a lot of experiences led me to learning about synchronicities. I didn't even know what that word meant. And I was trying to talk to my friend about this, and he said, "Have you ever heard of synchronicities?" And then we were talking about how, two coinciding things are happening and very similar thoughts at the moment, or you're thinking of someone and they call you. And I thought to myself, yeah, that is very peculiar. I never really thought about it too much. But then I would notice as I was questioning myself and going on these long walks, feeling lost in my life, I started noticing certain symbols interact with me as I'm asking myself questions. And that's when I started recognizing that synchronicities might be a language of God. And I started really enjoying that. And that actually got me to this point of trying to understand what that means. And that was my quest with receiving the 8 steps to synchronicity. Not that I thought that that's what I was going for, but I would meditate throughout the process to try and achieve these different things. So I guess the first way that I'm going to start is just give the 8 seed words, which I call the 8 seed words. They're like primary words for each of these dimensions, the 8 sections. And they go like this: creation, separation, realization, foundation, emanation, unification, manifestation, synchronization. And those are the 8 steps to synchronicity. The first one, creation, is kind of based on our perception of God, and even though it might have been taught to us by our parents or our structures or whatever it is that we're coming from, that is pretty abstract, you might say. And maybe different people believe in different things, but that's just part of where we're coming from. The second is separation. We separate from those things, and we go into a duality, and that is typically known as mother, father, day and night, or inhalation, exhalation. These things are fundamental to who we are, that are very separated. They create a line in between the polarities. Inhalation, exhalation is a line. We came from creation being a point, and then we go to number 2, which is a line. And the line is the 2-dimensional duality that gives us life in the physical form. But along with that, we get very confused. In that separation, we get confused from what we learned from our parents. We get confused from the separation of our society, like the separation of us and our government, or it's infinite, the separation. And that separation, ultimately you can follow it into why we have wars, to how we believe in each other's separate mentalities. And the third is realization. We realize who we are. And that happens after we leave our home. 2 is separation, which is our families, our parental nurturing. And then we leave our homes and we have a realization, if we're lucky. But a realization can also be not being so lucky in receiving your own realization, but many people take on the traditional realization. Like, let's say you're a hardcore Christian and then you initiate yourself to the same tradition, which is in most cases what's happening in our world. But some of us have the chance to awaken to experience who we really are ourselves. And it was when I was having this realization that I started understanding who I was as an artist and myself. The third realization and getting to awaken into yourself is a very important initiation as humans go. And unfortunately, we don't have this initiation in our communities, so we have to stumble upon these things on our own, which is part of our initiation, especially here in this modern culture, which is pretty crazy. But luckily, I did get introduced to psychedelics at this state, and I did use psychedelics as a initiation of sorts. It really gave me the chance to go within myself and meditate. And it was during these meditations that my awareness came. In stage number 2, it's about separation. In stage number 3, we realize that we are not separate, that each one of us is a reflection of our own self. And it isn't until you reflect your own self and get to know your own self that you're able to realize that all your issues and problems or all your happinesses are very the same as everybody else. And that's realization. From realization, we go into foundation. In foundation, we create our own belief. We create our own belief structure based on the realization that we had. In my case, and the case that I want to focus on, is the realization that we're all reflections with each other. But it can also be true for the person that didn't have a spiritual awakening to themselves and took on their traditions. Then they assume their belief or religion, their pre-existing beliefs. It's still the same, because instead of thinking of beliefs in stage number 4, I was trying to focus on believing. Instead of being trapped in a belief, I think it's just amazing that we have the capabilities to believe. And I think that instead of thinking of a belief, we should just be pondering about believing. That's an amazing thing that we have, which coincides or stimulates what imagination is. So I consider 4 marks the spot, X marks the spot. It's also the cross. It's also the root of religion. It's also the 4 directions of earth. It's also the 4 seasons of things. It's very fundamental to who we are and how we bind ourselves together. And all things are representing, even the religions that we're having issues right now are extensions or manifestations of this, or at least the desire to achieve this. Number 5 is emanation. And that word came to me because I didn't really understand what word I could use, but emanation came to me because it really exemplified. After we create number 4, we create a belief structure of who we think or who we believe to be, and what we're believing to anchor our belief into. Then number 5, and that is emanation, which is our expression. And this is where art comes in. After we laid a foundation of who we are, now we express ourselves. And this is the pentagram. This is magic. This is where we root ourselves into the 4, and then we sprout, and we become the pentagram and express. Along with that, it's just basically all based on expression. The thing about the 8 steps you have to keep in mind is that everything is nonlinear and one seeps into the other. But like I said in the beginning, we're human beings, and the only way we can communicate is through a timeline. But these 8 things aren't necessarily structured. As a matter of fact, all 8 collapse into one. And then we'll know that. I'm going to go through these steps a couple times in different ways of looking at it, so it makes more sense. But another thing I want to note is that I'm a person that never believes that there is no one way of thing. There is no one person that could be the leader of us all. There is no one thing in this fragmented world. But here we are, we're individuals, and we're needing to learn how to communicate and on that level. And that's the issue with our humanity at the moment, is because we're constantly looking for a savior, or we look up to our government, or we look up to media as our leaders, or we consider a democratic situation, nominating a president. But all those things are not going to get us anywhere if each of the individuals don't believe themselves to be the president. It just won't work. It causes sheep mentality, and we're constantly defending one side or another, which is separation. The realization of self is very important. And then from the realization of self, we create our foundation, which is the number 4. And here in number 5, it's really important for us artists to really get to know each other and help each other, because we're the pentagram together. And that's where I want to give a little shout out to the train, the vision train, and Tribe 13 and COSM, and all these different nurturing movements that we have is very crucial, because the movements themselves are us together. It's not a movement trying to tell artists how to express or what to express. That is a no-no. That's like a religion telling us what to do, which is a no-no. The movements themselves are expressions of the individuals. And that's why we are a movement. We congregate, we attract, which leads us to number 6. From number 4, we've built a foundation. 5, we become the expression. Number 6, we attract like-minded people from what we do. We start unifying outside of ourselves. And this is when we start breaking out of our individual development into interacting with the universe and what's outside of ourselves. And that's number 6. The pyramid from above, the pyramid from below, unifying in the middle. And in this stage, I put our networks. This is where we organize our network minds. What we're doing here right now is an expression of number 6. We're using technology to be able to unify different thoughts, moments, times. It's a way that we can work things. But also in this stage, I have this other science, I guess you can call it, based on lower, central, and higher dimensions. The lower is the natural dimension, the plant dimension, the mineral dimension. And the central is our social, with our art and our connectivity on that level. And then the higher is the sciences, the time mechanics, and those things that knowledge that helps us synchronize humanity on certain patterns that are natural and real. The central is our art people and the way that we can organize and network and create a foundation. And then the lower is the way we distribute our foods for our people, or our plant medicines, and the way we exercise the networkings of that, and all of that. So number 6 is about networking and learning how to look outside of yourself. Now that you've gone to number 5 and become an empowered creator from your foundation, we start unifying with other people. So the unifying networks that we have are crucial to number 6. But along with that, I want to point out something that is very important too, and that is manners. Manners are really important, even though a lot of us have ran away from manners, because coming from controlling environments of one kind or another, which is really important to become rebels. Rebels is a very important thing, because that is a step into number 3, which is realization. But manners in this case that I'm talking about is these simple things that we are needing to learn, because it makes things easier, like here in the Zoom world that we're getting to interact with each other, which is part of 6, we can't all talk at the same time. We can't, there's little simple things, you know, there's rhythms, and those are manners. In other words, on a most basic level is really respect yourself to speak. That's part of the manner. And then always humble yourself to listen. Another part of our manners. And these are very simple facts, but not very many people actually live up to this. Not very many people know how to even listen, which is very crucial to number 6, because you might be a genius, but if you don't know how to interact or have manners to listen, no one will maybe even know you're a genius. And not that you're trying to promote that, but if you are that, you have a message to speak. And to speak your message, we have to be interacting with each other. So we have to be really respectful to each other and such, which goes back to realization. We realize we're reflections of each other. So if we're reflections of each other, we have to develop these manners that allow each of our reflections to show up. And so often certain reflections aren't allowed, and it's not everybody's fault, it's everybody's fault, if that makes any sense, because each one of us have to present ourselves, but each of our other people have to accept each other. And that's very challenging. Yes. And from number 6 is manifestation, which is the crown, which is our, you know, society. In any case, it's our society right now. The 8 steps are always happening. Right now, we are experiencing number 7, our manifestation. It's a very confusing manifestation. It's based on external. It's based on fear. It's based on needing to fit in, because we're constantly needing to chase for our own sustenance. It is right here that I actually want to talk about Tribe 13 very specifically, because I could have been speaking about Tribe 13 all along, because it belongs to almost every step. But Tribe 13, in my thing, was a major part of my awakening. I started realizing that my internal world and my external world are one, and we're creating this platform to experience this oneness. And the more research I did, the more I realized that what I was channeling is the same thing that's been channeled throughout time. A lot of people would first say, "Oh, is that something about the 12 tribes?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's definitely something about the 12 tribes." "Or is that a Hebrew thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm not Hebrew or anything, but the way I understand reality is there is one thing happening. So if we chase our roots back to wherever we're coming from, it's going to be the same thing." And I really believe that the Hebrew people were expressing this specific fact in their own experience. But we can take it back to other eras of our existence that predate any time, because time is cyclical, time is forever, and it keeps on happening. And we can adventure to different times and places to find this information out. But from what I woke up to, and why Tribe 13 is really important to me, is that it is the unified culture of planet Earth. And each of us are meant to initiate ourselves into this family. And why is the number 13? Because we've inherited 12 points of space. We've inherited these patterns of space that are broken down into 12 parts. And we're constantly being refracted in those influences from those 12 spaces. And oftentimes we don't even recognize us that we're actually the center of the 12 spaces. And it isn't until we recognize that the 12 constellations aren't influencing each of us, which is true if we're caught in the external world, but we are influencing all the constellations. We're in the center of the whole universe. which leads me back to the process of human consciousness and development. Sometimes we believe that the earth was flat and the earth was flat. Sometimes we believe that we were that the sun was going through. And these different kind of concepts. Well, I really believe that the next concept that we're going for is that that everything is revolving around our own individual creativity. And it's something that is really hard to grasp, because how could I be speaking that you would be the center of the universe? What about me? Well, that's the point. You are too. What's going on is we're trying to understand our existence by external connection. And this external connection is not the truth. It's an illusion that we're experiencing together. And it is a really real illusion, because we are all manifesting this thing. This is number 7. We're experiencing the crown. This is our kingdom that we have right now, but it's all fragmented. And we all really need to awaken that we are creating this whole thing. That's why it's really important to experience these different patterns of expression, so we can help unify our consciousness without controlling each other. That's the challenge. That's the manners that we need to express. From 7 is number 8. Don't worry about it. Number 8 is the synchronization. After we get to the manifested forms, the manifested forms start synchronizing. And that's something, like I was going to try and come up with different simple patterns. And the shortest one that I came up with was 3. But 3 was just too personal, and it wasn't expressing how I would interact with the world. I could bring myself up to realization, but what would I be walking around like an enlightened person? I don't think so, because all of us are enlightened. There's no way that you are going to see an enlightened person unless you become enlightened. So I tried to do the number 3, and then I realized, well, if I take it to any other number, it's infinite. Yes, it is infinite. So when I stopped at 8, it wasn't that I was thinking that that's where it stops. No. But that's where our known reality comes to a point. That's when we start synchronizing with the other. And this is where it's really important, is that we build up to this point. And this is when the transmission that is beyond us starts happening. And these might be called the realms of the gods or alien communication or whatever. But we're not going to get to that point of interacting with the external if we can't achieve the primary 7 stages of our existence, which are personal and social. And we really need to work on these things. And why I bring this up and why I think this is important, especially to the artist, the primary artist that I'm speaking with, because this is what we're standing for. This is what we represent. Many of us call it visionary art or interdimensional art or whatever art. What we really are trying to express is the multiple dimensions that we're experiencing. Look at each and every one of our art. Is precisely expressing this. And there's a reason for that, because our consciousness is wanting and yearning to not be trapped by a certain space. And we're trying to liberate each other, but we still have to deal with these people leading in a separatist mentality. That's why it really lies on the backs of the artists, because we are the messengers, we are the media, and that goes for all of us, everybody. Everybody's an artist. And if we're not, and if you think that I'm alienating you, that's the problem. You're alienating yourself. What we really need is everybody to be creative, because creative minds answer for everything. And we have all these billions of inhabitants that don't even know. They're busy reacting to needing to fit in, and they have no choice, because that's the way this world is being ran. So the reason why this is all important to me is precisely that. And now we have visionary artists throughout the world expressing their interaction, their creativity, and it's not going to stop. I've already seen this. We're going to turn into a 12-pointed star. It's all prophecies manifest. That's our true. That's where the train is going, to the eternal party at the end of time. And on that note, I end. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roman. It's really just a pleasure to be able to hear you express these thoughts that I know are really intimate to you, and they're really meaningful for all of us.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. The one cool thing about when you start looking at life in these patterns, it's easy to remember a lot more, because you know how to, you're training your consciousness to organize these files in certain areas that pertain to those things. But don't get me wrong, I'm not a hyper functional human being, so I'm not pretending that I've like figured anything for myself. But this experience has led me to these thoughts, and these thoughts obviously work. That's why I have all these beautiful artists to interact with that I've synchronized with by believing these things, which to me is amazing.
Yeah. Can you remind me which one was number 4?
Number 4 is foundation.
Foundation, right?
Which is,
yeah.
After you've experienced realization, which is yourself, your awakening to yourself, then naturally number 4 is going to be our perception of reality. Foundation. I mean, I guess maybe Buddhists stop at 3 in a certain way, and like that, you know, there's no anything else or whatever, which I totally honor and understand. But in reality, I was not happy with that ultimately, because I really like this opportunity being an artist. I really like this 3rd dimensional reality. I really enjoyed this experience. So I really have to take in accordance of what is everything else outside of myself, like other beliefs, other religions, other people. And that's part of the challenge that we have, is how as artists primarily, how can we represent a unifying myth? It's up to us to do that. And one of my favorite Terence McKenna quotes of all time, even though he's got a billion, if the artist can't find the way, then the way cannot be found.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask which one is 7?
7 is manifestation.
Manifestation. And then 8 is synchronization.
Synchronization, yeah. Yeah, there's different ways we can go about it too, because 8, I associate 8 as possible futures, right? Where we exercise our imagination to help guide the development of the 7. And to me, what does that mean? Well, I guess at first I will say what it means to this world right now. 8 could be perpetual war, which is really sad. But that's kind of like the 8 that we're manifesting right now, because we're living with dialogues of our people that are very separatist. And these separatist ideologies and mentalities of non-unifying are creating perpetual war as synchronization. That's our when we believe in the separation of each other, then we're gonna end up having perpetual war. That's one way of looking at it. The way that I would like to look at it is we go through our 7 stages, and then 8 is we turn Earth into a healing retreat. That's the destiny of humanity. And what does that mean? Well, that means that each of us have a job, and that is to be healers. Not only do we need to heal ourselves, but once we start learning how to heal ourselves, and healing means having music events that you can go and dance, because that's part of our, you know, necessities. The foods that we grow, but it's all nurtured, you know, with the intent of this. So that kind of changes everything. Everything is crafted for healing. And I totally believe when aliens land, they're gonna land there, because that's when we open up the Earth as a healing retreat. And that's when we open up our consciousness to be able to receive the other.
That's to me what I see the train carrying. That's what the train is, the dissemination of the seeds of the healing.
Well, yeah, I keep on wanting to mention the train in a lot of ways because it's multiple planes, like definitely going to the party here and disseminating seeds. And I think of the Grateful Dead and these tours that we've had. They're all a part of this. Like I was telling you, Amanda, the other day, the train idea, when I was first thinking about it, I was all meditating on watching the water boil, you know, being really tired, just looking at the thing, waiting for the water to boil. And then I started noticing that there's rows of bubbles and before the whole thing turns up. And for some reason, I was thinking of the Grateful Dead. I'm like, oh, that's a Grateful Dead tour. But it profoundly affected me that there is these veins of light right before enlightenment occurs. And the best that we can do as artists is to become loving to each other as artists. And together we create these organic movements that are those veins of light. We assume the role of being the eyes for our people. And we're here to witness this awakening, which is amazing, consciously, which is amazing.
And isn't it trippy that trains brought time to us in the way that we use time now?
Yes, it's an interdimensional train, non-linear, probably goes in figure eights, wherever we want them.
Meta. It's a meta. That's what people have asked me over the years. Like, so when is the train going to leave the station, or where's the route? And yeah, but if you go there, you can't go there. And I've always thought, like, man, it's meta. Like this thing, it's already left the station. Some people are on it. Some people are waiting to get on it, you know, and where does it go? I mean, it's got to go everywhere. You know what I mean? And everybody's invited. Like, to me, it's like this, you know, and that's, I mean, it fits in. So to me, it's like when I heard you explain the 8 steps of synchronization, I think at Burning Man, or maybe it was at Earth Dance the first time, Earth Dance 2007. But it's part of the weaving of the story in my life that has led me to the ideas, the ability to also be receptive to vision. You know, and I think that's what happens in our lives. You know, we're all have puzzle pieces that we get from different, like, people that have had different insights, you know, be it through books or direct transmission, or, you know, and so it helps us weave the story of the reality of the choices that we make, I guess. And so in artwork, it's interesting because to bring it back to making art, like making a painting specifically, you're constantly making choices, right? It's an interesting playground to explore this work. What are your thoughts?
One thing that I'm curious about is that, like, we're speaking about these 8 steps in regards to like human life, right? But the first step is creation. And so as an artist, then I'm curious, like, how then do, you know, then I'm curious and interested in the way that these synchronizations apply to the artworks that we create ourselves, right? And so as you've been talking about it, I'm like thinking about it in my mind, you know, and just like we create the painting, you know, then we realize or we believe that there's like a separation between us and this object that we've created, you know, but then we realize that the inspiration has actually come through the divine, and we were just the purveyors of it, you know. And so then we can start to have a foundation of what the work actually means, you know, and start to share it, right? So then now that takes organization, you know, get it all printed, get it sent to this person and that person, you know. And so then, like, yeah, so anyway, the manifestation and then the synchronization of it all. So I'm just curious, have you thought about it in that way, and what is your take on how the 8 steps of synchronization apply specifically to creating artwork?
Well, I'll start first with the opposite, and then I'll answer about the art. I'm an interdimensional being. I want to be in all dimensions at any given moment. I feel like my consciousness desires to do this, so my consciousness is creating these patterns to be able to achieve that. Not that I've fully achieved that yet, but this is just my fantasy of life and my experience on Earth. I want to experience that, so here I am expressing this. That's the extreme on one side. On the art level is creation would be the idea, the spark. So you have an idea, and many people never move out of that. They don't separate themselves from the idea to start the artwork. So we're in our little heaven, in our creation bubble, number one. But then we break it and we start drawing. We break away from creation into separation. It's a line. It could be a line of, it could be anything. And there we go into the can of worms, if you will, into separation, you know. Oftentimes this is where the artist kind of like gets bummed on himself or herself because they don't understand what they're doing, well, which is a natural part of the whole process because we're breaking away from the idea. How could you possibly paint your idea all at once? There's no, it's impossible. So we must break away from this idea and then start from there.
It's like having to have the experience of separation in order to understand what the unity was to begin with, you know.
Yes, first we're a child, and then the parents, which is part symbolic to what you just brought up. But yes, regarding my interdimensional being trip, the 8, I would just want to say they synchronize anything and everything. So you could come up with whatever you want to come up with and apply the 8 steps, and you can break it into these 8 sections, and you can manifest whatever you really need to manifest. And it could be anything for that matter. And that's why I ended up with these 8 steps. I didn't just think about it a day or a month. I actually was meditating on this and trying to put it into practice for many, 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 many years. And I was just lucky enough that I synchronized my third eye awakening I had a rebirth experience under the Space Needle. And it's, I don't know if this is too far out there, but the Puget Sound, you know what the Puget Sound is? It's the body of water by Seattle. I was meditating on the Puget Sound. Sound is 5th chakra. And it was, I was wanting to communicate. And I was having a rebirth experience under the Space Needle, which is a Space Needle is an antenna, which is a crown at the bottom, and a third eye. And I saw this network throughout the world. And this is around the time that Nirvana and all these things from Seattle were happening. So myself, I was trying to project a psychic weave over the world during this. And since those moments, imaginary or not, so many people were coming to Seattle, and I would be having these kind of conversations with them. So I think that we're able to interact with the world on those levels. We're able to interact with the world on any level. We just need to figure out the patterns and realize that we're a conduit and we're a creative spark. And once we tap into our creative spark, it's limitless what we can achieve. And that's why, that's where I get lost in the limitless. And that's why I had to like anchor it down. And I was like, I need to anchor this infinite energy into something. So I, took the infinite energy and like, made a figure 8, which was inspired by nature because I look at everybody's face and I couldn't help but see figure 8s from one eye to the other. And I know a lot of my trippy friends understand what I'm saying. So yes.
Another thing that you said was something like it's not anybody's fault, it's everybody's fault, and that is something that I've thought about a lot before. I painted a painting with Amanda last year that was something that was really a reoccurring thing for me. the way that it was speaking to me was that nobody's guilty, but nobody's innocent, you know? And it's like this, the importance of acknowledgement within the whole process, you know, because, and that's where the realization is, you know, like that's what the step 3 is all about, is that acknowledgement and realization. And so once step 3 comes into activation, you have the acknowledgement and the realization, and then there's sort of like, once you know, you can't unknow, so there's an obligation to the truth that you are aware of, which then makes the other steps the like inevitable to happen.
Yes.
So I feel like the realization is the critical step within all of that, you know. Otherwise it's just
Definitely.
like a feedback loop, or you just stay within separation.
Well, like I was saying, some people don't have the realization, and they just assume their traditional roles, and which is totally a possible thing, but it feeds into these separated dimensions that we're dealing with. But they don't have to. It comes back to the artist again, to create a myth that unifies these different dimensions together. It really relies on us artists, and not only the painters, you know, music, are unifying vibrations that we express to help combat the separation. Because that's why we love all the best music we've ever loved is those people that express that unity within ourselves. And those people are superstars, you know? And because of that reason, we all yearn for that liberation. Which, another thing, and really strange, I told you I was in Seattle in the 90s and stuff. I would put this synchronicities to practice, you know, that's what I lived for. For years I would do this. One way that I would try and tap into, I was like, okay, I can breathe out, and then when I would inhale, I would take a step, and I would just do that wherever it would take me. Then I was thinking, that's kind of too slow. I have to take one step every breath. There's no way. So then I was thinking, okay, I take one step every inhalation, and every exhalation, I still keep on walking. So then all of a sudden I started synchronizing with my thought patterns as I'm processing these thoughts. And I feel like one of the luckiest people in the world, because it led me to incredible synchronicities. Like one night, Kurt Cobain came up to me. I have loved this experience. And even though it was very momentary, it was an amazing synchronization. And I had synchronicities that were on that level nonstop. And that's the other thing with opening up to these patterns. When you focus on the patterns, you're gifted with things that are beyond you. We start synchronizing which is beyond us. And that's why I settled with synchronicities as a language of God, because no one can control that. No one can say that they're creating the synchronicities. No one can. However, your duty is to get yourself to that point. And if you're not creating yourself to that point, then it's not your synchronicity. You might witness somebody else's synchronicity, but the universe is really wanting you to play.
Right.
And playing means to be creative and offering.
Yeah.
Joel,
That's beautiful.
You feel like
I have a question.
yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about the relationship between the two words angle and angel. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts around the relationship between angles and angels.
I love that question. Actually, Zion, my son, brought that up before, and I thought that was pretty cool. As far as angles and angels, I also want to throw aliens in there. And this is a very arty thing, but all artists, as far as I know, maybe not, but most artists you have to remove yourself from the canvas for a second and look at it from a third point perspective. Yeah, exactly. It's just part of our nature. I was all pondering on this because I needed a different angle, an angle. So as I'm like looking at my piece from a different angle, I'm like, okay, my canvas is the earth and I'm just outside of the earth looking down. And then that's when I recognize, oh, aliens exist because of that primary fact, that we need a third point perspective into this situation. The whole point that I'm able to look at my own thing from a third point perspective fractals out into the universe into a manifested form. So that's my take on the angle. But on the angel, which I didn't really go to, I would put into the number 2, separation. And angels and demons play a part in that. And I completely believe them to be real, but not real like what maybe a lot of people believe. But that being said, it is what other people believe. I really believe that the consciousness that we're projecting, our people, is, like I said, number 7 is a manifestation. And this is, we're living in the kingdom of manifestation right now, except it's all broken and splintered because all of our people are believing different things. That being said, there really is angels and demons because we've fragmented our consciousness into those fragments, and that in itself is manifesting these things. So on that level, that's what I think about these things. And the reason why we need an awakening within ourselves is to collapse those angels and demons into ourselves and unify our consciousness. And that's what I think about those kind of things. I really do believe in angels, but I believe them to be from a separation, which is still reality, but it is a dimension and an influence. But ultimately, the influence is guiding or trying to guide, or an expression of our separation, but trying to guide us to our centeredness. That's why there is angels trying to guide us to our centeredness, to be one with God or the universe. And the demons are trying to detract us from that. But one thing I realize about the demons now is they're our friends too. They're our shadow. All they need is a job, like a crazy dog that goes crazy. And ultimately you find out, oh, he just wanted to protect the place. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have some
I
fierce
feel that,
demons
and
protecting me.
and just the need to think about like both the angels and the demons as holy that need to be unified. That I never heard it like really spoken about in that way, and that really like kind of, I'm gonna have to like process that one for a little bit because yeah, I feel like that's profound.
Another basic, thank you. I really do believe that myself, because that's like, to me, fundamental truth to me, because I went to the depths of trying to understand that. And my fears and my rejoices are all that. But another really basic one to express what we're talking about is art. When you're trying to do art and you're like, let's say you're gonna draw a cup on a table. The whole reason you're able to draw that cup on a table is because the light is on one side and the shadows on the other side. That is the only reason you can actually look and see that cup. So what I'm saying is the shadow side is the shadow side and the light is over here. Ultimately, you would say that the light dispels the darkness. Yes, you could do that. No longer is the cup, like the Buddha awakening.
But the darkness also defines the light.
They both become one. There is no separation.
Yeah.
There's no light, no dark. I don't know how to talk about that, but we can try.
Yeah. Well, it's no mystery. You are Mr. Synchromystic.
Thank you.
Roman Villigrana, thank you. One of the founders of Tribe 13 and the Interdimensional art movement.
Yes, the Interdimensional art movement is been, because, we all as artists want to be part of an art movement. So that was my little fantasy art movement that I thought of. Because one of my favorite parts is kind of cheesy, but it's the acronym is I am. So which is the finite point of us. And then interdimensional art movement is pretty, could be anything. But it could be anything, but it's still rooted in the I am. So I always love that, because as artists, I know that each one of us is the same. All we want to do is feel free. And it's very crucial to do that. And sometimes when we belong to groups, we don't necessarily feel free, which is, we're an evolutionary leap, that's for sure, in these circles that we're connected to personally. And it's really amazing to experience and witness this.
Yeah. And also open the field more. I feel like that's what's happening now too. There's like a widening of the circle, and just through doing this talk, and inviting like all the people that are tuning into this, just opening up the field. It's like, look, hey, we got some stuff to share that might be of value to others, acknowledging that and showing up and doing it, I think it's a part of that, evolution of a movement, and
Exactly. That's another one of the main reasons for the 8 steps for me, is because all those things are going to exist no matter what, but it really is for each one of us to express ourselves, and we have to empower ourselves to express and share. And somebody says, well, I only do artwork for myself. That's a legitimate thing. However, you have to also remember that you are humanity. So you could be in a closed room somewhere needing to do artwork for self-healing. That's perfectly fine. You're still doing it for all of us, because you're a human being connected to humanity. We can't remove ourselves. So as long as we can nurture creativity, that's all that truly matters. From there, the spirit starts taking over. And that's what we really have to nurture with people, to have that experience. That's why psychedelic dance events are very awesome, because they nurture the experience of the individual to explore themselves. Of course, there's a lot of ills that come with us, but those ills come from lack of guidance, lack of leadership, which is exactly what we're experiencing in the big picture. We're having a lack of guidance and a lack of leadership. So of course it's going to happen like that within our circles as well. But we do have these structures in place to coordinate freedoms. And that is definitely something that we have to learn how to express, because we're all so busy killing each other in the name of freedom, yet nobody really is exercising their freedom. I mean, I think if we would exercise our freedom, we wouldn't be doing it.
Well, it's the step 3 that's been missed, the realization. It's like when you're stuck in separation and then you keep trying to plow through, then you end up with manifestation in division.
Exactly.
the eternal ever-changing party of now. That's where we are. That's what we're doing. That's for
Make no
make no resistance.
to an interdimensional existence
I love it.
with only one rule. One rule. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Bad thoughts collide, with the physical shell we ride, so glide with a good vibe and be one with a harmonic tribe. 13, if you know what I mean, making the unseen seen. The unseen seen. Why is it the unseen seen? Oh, when you all belong at once, it cancels it out. There is no scene. Because usually, there's different cliques, different scenes. That's the reason why you would need that name, scene. It's a different scene. But when you all become the same scene, then it disappears.
Nice. I love it. Wow, so groovy. So we've been chatting for a good hour. Any other questions or thoughts here? We're going to move on up, transition on over to the nonstop train, join our crew. Alecia, do you have anything or?
I mean, there's many rabbit holes here that I would love to dive into with you deeper because, and I'm sure that we will. But yeah, especially, yeah, and still my mind keeps going into like where there could be feedback loops when you skip certain steps within the synchronicity. And so yeah, there's a lot of really good juicy nuggets of truth that you shared today, and I really like the way that you laid it out. I think it's very valuable for all of us to consider the lesson that you've offered today.
I'm glad that you said that about if you skip certain steps or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true, but it's just it's great that you're thinking about that. You're obviously recognizing that. And having a pattern to reflect upon, you start like, it's almost like a lens, and you're like adjusting the lens, and you might be bouncing here and there and such, but you're adjusting the lens, which is amazing.
And we're all working on it, right? I mean, we're all working on it. So
definitely.
I have a question, Roman. Is this online anywhere? Have you typed this up? I remember you used to make these little booklets. Is it online, the 8 steps?
Not in depth, and I've always wanted to, and I've been planning it, and I've been done my own writings for years or whatever. But it's a very sensitive thing for me because I wanted to organically come to the presentation. And to me, I've actually been envisioning what we're having right now for a long time. As a matter of fact, that was part of the beginning. Because in the beginning, I would be in a circle of people, and I wouldn't be able to articulate my vision or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I missed my chance to talk. Darn, that whole ego thing of your mind, not able to jump into a circle of talk. And then I'd go on a walk, and then I'd have the most profound lyrical flow in my head. And then I was thinking, man, I wish I could just talk right now. And guess what? Now we can. Now we can be in our own little bubbles, in our own comfort of our homes, and we can tap into it whenever we want. We have an enlightening thought. We can exercise it. It's pretty amazing.
yeah. Yeah, and it's like when you get stuck in your head like that, you're stuck in separation and you haven't had the realization yet, and then you kind of walk away from your friends, you take a little puff, and then all of a sudden it's like you relax into the realization, and then that's where the magic can really kick off, but when you're stuck in the separation, the feedback loops.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is just so timely. If I think about where we are, what is it? It's April 24th, 2020. We're in a huge shift. Humanity is going through a big readjustment. It's kind of like, we're going to look back on these times as a pretty monumental opportunity, and also for shift. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing for many people. It's a major altercation, but it can also help us also think about things differently, or be open to it, and so
it's up to us artists.
Yeah.
So what's your call to action, Roman?
Well, what we're talking about is precisely what we're talking about right now. I didn't define it myself from a perspective because, like I said before, I don't think any one of us could be really leading the whole picture because it's a multi-dimensional thing that we're tapping into. That's why it's really important to be artists and just really nurture the creativity. And each one of us has a little bit of the message being relayed, so long that we're true to ourselves. And that's why if we're going to talk about anything, it's about that and how we can help each other just through the mere influence of our art or our message or our friendship. Just through the mere bonding of each other on that level will be enough to nurture our arts for the rest of humanity. So, and I really do believe in this profoundly. Like we are at this point of of transformation. We are stepping into ourself. However you want to define the future, we're going into further steps of ourself. It's very crucial. Our technologies are reflecting this. The needs of our environment are reflecting this. If each one of us can't recognize that we're special or sacred, we're not going to be able to fix the environment problems. That's why right now artists have to activate, because on the other level, the activists, the governments, and all these other external manifestations trying to solve the problem, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to if we don't change the way human beings perceive themselves. There is no way that we can fix any problem and live in a consuming-based mentality, which is nurtured by fear and separation. I mean, we have like the ultimate challenge, of course, but it's not going to get any easier. We're getting cornered and more cornered into this separated reality. And we really need to use our consciousness and our creativity to help unify these separations. And that is awesome, because that, gives us credit as being creative beings. If that's what we're living to, I really believe that synchronicities start happening and providing us with opportunities as they have. That's why I'm talking with each and every one of you. Each and every one of you have followed your creative path and have manifested these connections. And here we are talking about our visions together, and people are listening. It's not going to stop. It's going to grow and grow until the whole pot of water is boiling.
Till the whole pot of water is boiling. I love that. Paint that, everybody. Let's paint it in the way that you see it,
Totally.
And so it is. So where can everybody find your artwork if they don't know already how to find you online?
The easiest thing at the moment and the most current thing that I post, it would be my Instagram page under Synchro Mystic.
Thank you for your leadership, Roman. I think that that's really what this conversation is leading to as well, right? Is just the encouragement of us all to realize that we have a responsibility to ourselves and to one another, and to organize, right? Like number 6. So that's sort of what this is too. It's like a call to action. Even just us streaming this right now is an attempt at reminder to one another that we have platforms at our fingertips, and that we all have the ability to be leaders. And one of the viewers, Sarah Jo Wolf, she said, "Not anyone is the leader. We are all the leader."
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to say. I will accept being seen as a leader in the reflection of leaders. And that's what that's precisely what we're dealing with right now. It's actually really important to talk about, because right now we're like, people are like putting it outside of themselves, like regarding the president and all the things happening right now. Just like I was saying before, we're not going to be able to change anything if we don't change the mentality of the human being. And if you don't recognize yourself as a leader, you're always going to be falling behind. You're always going to be looking up too. If we're going to have a working democracy, it's not going to work like that, because we're going to be trailing behind on a linear perception. But we're not linear perceptions. We're multidimensional beings. And the only way that we're going to achieve this way of existence is to be present with our leadership. And what that means is to be humble for the leadership to happen. That is, we have to learn how to listen to each other, because we are all leaders. But we also have to nurture that too, because there is moments of time when some of us are crazy, and that influences a little bit much. So that goes back to number 6 that I was talking about, on how to have manners, how to deal with certain people. Maybe somebody's being a little too crazy, and we have to deal with that. And we have to learn the manners on how to deal with such things as well, so we can help nurture each other to be more balanced and harmonic with our leadership roles. I've like created these things in multiple levels, different dimensions, different thoughts, longer written, shorter written, little books, big books. and I've yet to manifest it fully because I think the real synchro mystic is kind of in charge. So it's all happening as it's happening.
Yeah. Okay, so what are the 8?
Okay, creation, you are born. Separation, you separate from where you are born. Realization, you realize who you are now that you've separated from your place. 4, foundation, you create a belief of reality. 5, emanation, you express, you go on the mission of what your reality is. 6 is unification, you attract other like-minded people. 7, manifestation, babies happen, projects happen, nations grow, everything manifests. 8 is synchronization, the manifested pattern starts synchronizing into reality.
Awesome. Awesome sauce. Thanks so much, Roman.
Appreciate it.
And so, yeah, everybody out there that's been hanging out with us all over the world, thanks so much for tuning in. This was somewhat spontaneous. It's our first express line from the Vision Train, and we're all hanging out on this nonstop train. You know, it's a kind of unification. We're number 6. Which is a fascinating little experiment that we've been in during quarantine. And we're going to be broadcasting more kind of conversations like this, and expanding the circles of the, you know, who's on board. And if you know you're on board and you're a practicing artist, or you want to hang out with practicing artists and go deep into your creativity, and come check out the nonstop Vision Train Global Art Jam. We can put the link in this chat. It's a group, it's a Facebook group. You gotta, you know, let us know why you want to come join and share some intentions. And but yeah, it is a forum that's opening its circles ever wider, and we're basically talking about stuff like this all the time, listening to good music and making art. So yeah, good things.
Thank everybody for watching. You know, thanks everybody that have helped put this together. And thanks, Roman, for showing up and really, like, you know, onto this platform and into your leadership and sharing your wisdom with us. I know that there's a lot of us that have long pensive moments to be had with these 8 steps and the ways that they can be integrated into our lives, and the ways that we can use them in order to activate the synchronization within, you know, our reality. So thank you so much again.
To offer to offer the true present, which is being present. That's what this is all about. Each one of us to be present. So that's all I ask from each and every one of us, to try and be as present as possible, whatever that means to you. Don't ever let anybody else get in the middle of that, because that is your offering to us. And what we really want is a 100% pure.
Thank you so much.
Bless.
Choo choo.